All right. It's crazy how the ancestors work. When you looking for information, you gonna find it, right? But I was looking through the book, right? Because I was trying to make sure, like, I wanted to share some images and things from the book, but I didn't want to put certain things, like as far as like the one where I said I might have to edit it because I'm doing it basically live, like with my video, as far as like screen recording it. So I can't really necessarily edit the page like this, the app, so that it doesn't appear on the screen like that. So I don't know how to blur it or do anything like that, like the nudity. So I skipped that page. So I was just looking through other pages to gather some more images to show y'all. So I was like, yo, let me look through this real quick, right? And then I was just like, I just was like reading it, and then basically is this is a continuation from the other page, like the beginning part. But it said the unusual expression of his countenance was straight instead of woolly hair may be seen. He is not a typical Negrito, although the nose is semi-australoid and ear modified primitive type. It says, wait, before I even go on, like when you look at this dude, right, you will probably think, like, even though he's dark, you would probably be like, oh, that's, you probably wouldn't think that he wasn't like a Filipino. You would probably think he is a Filipino. He just looked dark. But they saying his hair was like artificially straightened. Like, so basically he could pass if he was like lighter, like for something else. But that shows you like some of the people that's there now. So you that shows you that when you mix people out, when they look a certain way, like you could change stuff like they hair and certain things, and then if you mix them out and then they become lighter, but they still have certain phenotypes, somebody might see that phenotype and attribute it only to a certain group of people and not think that originally the stock that they come from was so-called Negroid. See, that's where people don't really, they seem to not grasp that part. They seem to make it seem like there's so many, a million races, and everybody's their own thing. Well, yeah, people kind of like change over time from mixing and things like that, and isolation and things like that, but there's still origins of things. And if we're gonna be like realistic, you can't ignore origins of things, because like people like to bring up haplogroups and things like that. And then when you look at some of these other people haplogroups, the haplogroups that they belong to are originally of a so-called Negroid stock, is where it's prevalent, and that's a stock that's so-called Negro. So that's what a lot of people don't tell you when they start talking about DNA and all that stuff. If we're gonna like look at that as being the truth, right? Like being like actually what's being represented. But at the same time, we can't fully look at DNA all the way, because basically what they do is this. If you say you live wherever you live at, right? You live on like Cloverfield Lane or whatever. I don't know why that's the street that I thought of. But let's say you live on Cloverfield Lane, right? And your family moved to Cloverfield Lane, right? They was never from Cloverfield originally. They moved there. They migrated there, right? But if you have kids there and your kids have kids there and so on and so forth, after a while y'all start saying we from Cloverfield Lane, because y'all lived there so long. So at a certain point it's like, oh, my father, my mother, their father's mother, so and so forth, was born here. They live in Cloverfield. So basically what they started doing when they start doing some of these tests, they'll say, oh, you live in Cloverfield Lane, I'm going to test your DNA, and if nobody has DNA enough to the same level as your DNA, that means they not from Cloverfield Lane, which is some BS, because people migrate. Like, people will have stories about them coming from somewhere else, even if it was in the same landmass or not. They'll say, "Oh, we came from this place," to where it's like, how can you do that? Like, because there's other people that might have went, they not might have, but a lot of time other people went off, branched off, and they might have mixed with some other people, or they might have stayed isolated. And then when you see the mixed version, you say this is the real and only version because you've been taught that. So that's what they do with a lot of these other people. And then they did that to make it seem like so-called Negroid people don't have no real, like we just come from Africa, when there's so many other places on this earth that we come from. And they'll even say the people in the Andaman Islands are, they'll say they're Asian, like DNA. They'll say they're not African. Even though when you look at them, you would say these people are African, because they've been brainwashing us to believe that everybody is African, when so-called Negroid people exist in the whole world. Like, we're not limited to one continent. But the way they'll try to tell you history, they make it seem as though that's the case, because they don't tell you about people until they either eradicate them, or like they mix them out, or they like have them in so small of groups that people don't even come across them like that. So they could say, oh, these people, oh, they came there, migrated there, they're like remnants of slaves that got left or some dumb shit like that. So like, just remember, when you reading, that's the type of thing they do, like, a lot of times. So I'm gonna continue. But it says, he is not a typical Negrito, although the nose is semi-Australoid and the ear modified primitive. It said the photographs of the Maravellis Negritos were all placed upon a large table before me, and when I scrutinized them, I carefully realized that I was looking into the faces of a familiar people among whom I was born and with whom I grew up, the American Negro. When I had to stop there, because I was like, when I was just looking through the pictures of the book, because I had the book on the app, right? So basically I was like, let me slide through and see which ones I could, like, basically I was going to post most of them, but I told you one of them I had to edit. I don't want to keep saying that, but I was like looking at stuff, and then I was reading, and then I'm like, wait, what? I see American Negro in there, and I was like, wait, hold up. And then when he said that, I was like, yo, you can't make this up. I'm like, I done spoke with people and had these kind of conversations. Like, there's one video that I seen, and I still cannot find it on here for some odd reason. Like, I don't know, remember what I typed, but I was typing in Black Indians, Black Native Americans. I was typing in stuff like that just to see what comes up. Like, and there was one video where a man, he was speaking on the subject about Negritos being in America. He said in California, and I believe when he was speaking there, you didn't see, I don't think you saw his face. I think they were showing images or something, or they were like, I don't remember if the images were necessarily a Negritos, but they were showing images, I think, and they had the audio behind it, if I'm not mistaken. And when I seen that, I was like what? Like, hold on, like, because I'm like, I know a lot of us have been taught certain stuff, and this is some years ago. And I still haven't found that video again, but I'm like, it's just funny how the ancestors work, because when I was reading this, I'm like, yeah, like, it's really funny how they spoke on that. Like how he said the American Negro, and I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. He said practically every face recalled. He said youthful associations, and every individual of the Maravellas group has its counterpart among American Negroes. I was like, yo, what? Like, what? Like, not that I didn't believe it, but just like, it's like when you know certain things and you read certain things and you see certain things, and intuition speak, you be like, yeah, like I'm definitely have some type of descendant of Negrito, like, in my DNA, because my stature isn't the tallest, basically. But when I was researching different groups of people and looking into stuff, I would see, like, they would call them like pygmies in other places, but then if they went somewhere else, normally they would call them a Negrito. But then it's like, it's different terms that they call these, like, shorter so-called Negroid people. And basically, they were like some of the first more ancient people. They spoke on these things before. I've seen things and read things that speak on that. Like, so it's like also like in Ireland they spoke about that. Like having the pygmy, they had like so-called pygmy and giants. And that's another thing. That's a whole nother thing with the so-called Black Irish and original people, Irish people that were a Negroid stock. Also, there's a book that speaks on that, and other people have touched on that already. But I don't want to like get too sidetracked. But even though it's not sidetracked, it's all connected. I always tell people this. It's like I have to keep going. But yeah, practically every face recalled youthful associations, and every individual of the Maravellas group has its counterpart among American Negroes. And then it says the photographs of the Negritos from other parts of the Philippines were likewise disposed upon a large table, replacing the Maravellas Negroes. He said the familiar faces of the homeland vanished, but in their and but in their places appeared the faces that one meets every day in Manila, or in the province's familiar for Filipino types. A few of them still resemble the American Negro, which is particularly true of the Negritos of the Isabela province. I think that's the part that I started reading at one point because I was like scrolling through the pages and it caught my eye. I saw American Negro and I was like, nah, let me look into that because I was already making connections, but I had to do that. So I was like, let me read that. And when he said the Isabela province, I was like, all right. So it said the casual observations must be taken with reservation because no data can be substantiated then. To no data can be given to substantiate them. It said, but I believe they indicate a close relationship between the Negritos of the Philippines and the African Negro. It says to summarize, the Maravillas Negroes, who apparently purer in type than any other group and who are largely of Iberian and Australoid types, have relatively longer noses and lower extremities than any other group of Negritos, represented by photographs. It said the Zambales Negritos, who are largely mixed and of the primitive type, have relatively shorter faces and lower extremities than any other group. And the remaining groups, who are also much mixed and intermediate between the Iberian and the primitive, have noses and faces and lower extremities of intermediate length. I'm gonna stop right there because basically I was trying to show y'all that page. I wasn't even trying to go into all that other stuff. I'm like scrolling through this because yeah, see, this is the end of it. But I'm gonna go back real quick to this page because I was looking through the pages and I was just like, wait, let me look through these pictures and let me just see what they talking about. Because I already seen the book before, but I'm like, I don't see people showing these things. But I was like, look, you see how it says a pure Negrito and a mixed Negrito standing beside an American. That one, that picture, I feel like it's hard to say, but at the same time, I would say the smaller dude is the purer one and the taller one isn't. Because the Negrito is the smaller person naturally. So the taller mixed one, the taller one would be a more mixed than just a pure version. And they said American, which you know that representation of American isn't the original representation. So obviously that both pictures they say that, but you see a mixed Mangayan Negrito standing beside an American. And basically the ones that they be saying mixed, they're more mixed with like the so-called Asian looking type, and they have more loosely curled hairs most of the time. Their appearance will seem more like that, like a mixture of so-called Asian and so-called Negro. Like, so you can see the mixture. Most of the people that they show you that look like that, they give you their image and say that that's the original, when we know we clearly could see this book showing you that that is not the case. But even though we can have different types of hair loosely curled also, so don't think just because they say somebody was mixed that means they was all the way mixed either. But some instances you can kind of tell, so you know, like, all right, yeah, that's more apparent. But you see, even this dude, it says a Batak man of Tinabad, island of Palawan, modified primitive and Australoid type. And then it says a Negrito of Cagayan province, northern Loa, northern Luzon, blended hair form. When they say blended, they trying to say kind of mixed kind of hair. Their hair look a little more loosely curled. But you see this dude, you see how he looks like. I feel like if you look at him, the top picture, you could say, oh, this person looks like they could be from Africa, possibly. That's what some people would say. I feel like people would make that assumption if you looked at it. They wouldn't say, oh, this person is from the Philippines. Pretty sure, like, if I ask like 10 people and I asked them where that person was from, they probably will all say not the Philippines. Like, but clearly this person is, and it says mixed, modified primitive and Australoid type. And primitive is just means first. That's like old, like ancient people, like that's so-called Negroid, but and then they have other types, like the where they say Australoid type, which is more like people that's more closer to like Australia, Polynesia, those areas, like the so-called black people that from that area. And then you have the Iberian types, which is basically supposed to be like European allegedly, but the original European, like the so-called black European, before you had the displacements and mix outs of peoples. And see, like even this picture, they say Negrito from Capiz Island of Panay, with considerable Visayan blood, modified primitive type. You see how they say modified? They're usually saying that means they're mixed together with something. It said those. See, like even when I was just going to that point, it says those of the Valley have mixed with the Filipinos there, which is indicated by their curly hair and modified form. Pardon me. I'm like I'm all over the place right now. This ain't edited, scripted, none of that. I just freestyling right now. As far as like reading what's on there, showing you the pictures like real time. I'm not really like, I don't have any a script where it's like, all right, this minute I'm gonna talk about this. This is just all off organics right now. But you see, as I was saying, I even seen that, and then it says even where it says their hair is wavy, a blended hair form, and other characteristics are modified primitive and Australoid, like things like that. But they showing you that this dude is a mixed Negrito or modified primitive type with the saying. So basically, see like this even like the women at the bottom, you can see that they're more mixed, so to speak, but then they look still very Negroid. Like as far as the hair, the kids, like the children. I know women that look like that, so it's still more Negroid, even though they still appear to be mixed, right? And it said that they were mixed, but this dude, it said the Pagatolan, a Negrito chief of Isabela province. Like when the guy was saying that these are like familiar faces of people that like they would see in America, like an American Negro. I'm like, exactly. Like this dude, if you had him over here and he straightened his hair and he wore certain regalia, he could definitely pass for what you would call a so-called Indian, Native American. That's one of our original ones. That's Negroid, so-called. This dude, Negrito man from Isabela province, Australoid type. He's an Australoid type, right? But look at, I can't zoom in much more. I don't even know how distorted that's gonna look in the final video, but look, I'm trying to show y'all. You see that dude? I'm pretty sure y'all got like a uncle, grandfather, something that look like this guy. He was saying some crazy stuff on the page though. I'm not even. It was some slight self hate type thing. I'm not even gonna read that. But like these two dudes, right? A Negrito man from Isabela province, Eastern Luzon. I know people that look like him too, or I've seen people that look like him in the face. Like, look at him. I've seen people that look like that. Definitely. This dude too. Especially him too. I seen people that look like him. And you know when you see people that when you would see pictures of people from other places that look like similar to people, and you like it make you think because you're like, all right, it's possible that it's just we have so many phenotypes that we have similar looking people over here and over there. But also sometimes it is that we have some of these people are from like there and some of them did travel. Like where's lineage? Like and we might have lineage from these people, some of these people, and we're thinking it's something else because the people we're shown don't look like that anymore. And we're just believing like, oh, we just came all from Africa when we're so diverse. It's like that's BS. Like I'm showing you right now. Like this dude said Negrito man from Zambales, Iberian type. I seen dudes that look like him, like his like that same that same look, like in the face, like that same look. I seen dudes that look like that. And then this dude, when I seen a picture of him, I was like, nah. He looked like a certain rapper, and I was like, that's crazy. But he looked like other people I seen too from America, where when you looking at him, you like, man, I seen a few people that look exactly like that. Is a Filipino Maravellas Negrito. But they saying degenerate Iberian type. See stuff like that. That they like to disrespect and speak certain ways, but whatever. You know why they do that. But basically, you see this dude. He's a Filipino. He's one of the original type Filipino people. But if you look at the people, they will not show you nobody that looks like that. They will not even tell you none of these people look like this. But I'm about to end it there because my headphone about to die and I don't want that to mess up the video. But basically, yeah, don't believe the hype and lies that they try to tell us that we all come from Africa and that we don't exist outside of that.